7 o'clock, and I see from the participant list, I think we've got everybody on board who we're expecting to be on board tonight. As a result of the order in council recently issued by the Municipality of McDougall, declaring an emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as requirements for social distancing, this committee council meeting will be held electronically in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001. I would now ask that the clerk take a roll call to determine quorum and advise who is participating in the meeting today. Mrs. West.
Thank you. Mayor Robinson.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Constable.
Present.
Councillor Gregory.
Present.
Councillor Malott.
Present.
Councillor Ryman.
Present.
It's determined that we do have quorum to proceed with this meeting. I'll now take attendance of staff to advise who is joining us today. Tim Hunt, CAO.
Present.
Aaron Robinson, Treasurer.
Present.
Kim Dixon, Chief Building Official.
Present.
And myself, Lori West, Clerk.
Thank you. Reminder to council that movers and seconders for all motions have been assigned. If when the motion is read, you would prefer not to move or second a particular motion, please let me know at that point in time. I now call this meeting to order. Any declarations of interest? Seeing none. Changes to the agenda. Item 6.4, John Jackson, Prairie Sound Area Planning Board. Read the consent application B30 2020 for Georgian Rock Company, Halls Construction, to be considered at the beginning of Section 6 Planning Building as item 6.6. Jamie Robinson, MHBC Planning Limited. Read the review of Prairie Sound Area Planning Board consent application B30 2020. Second edition of item 13.2, correspondence from Dave Thompson, Director of Emergency and Protective Services, Town of Prairie Sound, regarding the Supplemental Emergency Medical Services Levy. Any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none. Adoption of minutes, moved by Councillor Malott, seconded by Councillor Constable, that the minutes of the committee council meeting held on September 2nd, 2020 be adopted as circulated. Discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? It's carried. Deputations, none scheduled for tonight. Item 6, Planning and Building. 6.1, Mr. Jackson, Prairie Sound Area Planning Board, the consent application for Georgian Rock Company, Halls Construction, 2 new lots, Burnsides Bridge Road, Seguin River. Mrs. West.
Perhaps Mr. Jackson would like to review his report. We'll see the next matter being Jamie Robinson, who reviewed the application on behalf of the municipality, and will give an overview on his report thereafter.
Mr. Jackson, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson, Council. This application is to create two new lots just west of the mountain basin along the Seguin River on holdings that they have with respect to their lands on the other side of Burnsides Bridge. The application has some issues in respect of planning matters that we have proposed solutions in the way of some conditions by way of an agreement that would be registered on title. Those are included in the recommendation. I think council reviewed them, but I'll just quickly repeat them. That there will be a caution with respect to the quarry operation that they have as part of these lands, consistent with how we've dealt with these in other adjoining properties in the neighborhood. The issue of flooding of the Seguin River, which is a policy recommendation from the official plan that will prescribe what those flood criteria will be. The access to these 2 new lots is going to be by a right-of-way that the owners secured and built to the east a couple of years ago by a previous consent. And then there'll be the attendant kinds of indemnifications to limit the municipality for any responsibilities for any of these items and the creation of these lots. So unless there are any questions, Your Worship, by council, that's the general nature of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Any questions at this point on this item from council? No? Okay, we had the internal document from our staff in terms of comments. It was part of our package. I think as a result of that, on the recommendation of staff, we've asked for a planning advice from Mr. Robinson. So should we hear that now? Okay. Welcome, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and members of council, and thanks, John. It's good to see you again. So we have prepared a planning report at the request of Ms. West to undertake a review of the proposed application. I'll be fairly brief. Mr. Jackson has provided the pertinent information and a review of the proposal. We aren't opposed to the creation of the lots in principle, but however, there are a few items that we think need to be addressed prior to council providing direction to the planning board to approve the lots, or prior to the council providing the planning board with a resolution in support of the creation of the proposed lots. Sorry, and those issues relate to the quarry, the existing pit and quarry that's located immediately to the south of the subject lands that are also owned by the applicant. Specifically, the items relate to providing some additional details with respect to the consistency with the applicable sections of the provincial policy statement and the sections of the township official plan as they pertain to land use compatibility. And the specifics of those are because of the creation of a new residential lot is considered a sensitive land use, and the area of influence prescribed by the ministry guidelines, which are the D-series guidelines, is 1,000 meters, and the proposed uses are within 1,000 meters. So I don't think it's an arduous task to complete, but we would request some additional justification be provided by the proponent and Mr. Jackson on how the proposed 2 new lots would satisfy those provincial policy statement criteria, and some specific justification on whether there are any, and the language that's provided in the planning documents as any mitigation measures that need to be undertaken to ensure compatibility. Mr. Jackson has suggested that there be an agreement registered on title, providing the future property owners with an undertaking that, and them acknowledging that there is an aggregate operation adjacent to the subject lands. And that's, I think, step one. That's a good step, but that doesn't specifically address the fact on whether any mitigation measures are required. So that's the step that needs to be taken here. We think that there is a light at the end of the tunnel on this one. We just need to make sure that whether or not any mitigation measures are required, and specifically what those studies would look at are there any noise impacts associated with the quarry operation on the proposed location of the residential lots? Are there any dust impacts? Are there any odor impacts? And it would look at the timing of the operation, the type of operation, and then the proximity of the proposed residential uses. These studies, we've seen them a number of times in other applications and other municipalities. Again, it's not an arduous thing, but we think it's something that needs to be done before sign-off can be provided in order to demonstrate consistency with the PPS and conformity with the official plan. So I'll stop there, and if there's any questions that arise out of that, I'd be happy to do my best to try to answer those. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from council, staff at this point in time?
No.
Right, we're seeing this application for the first time tonight, which is As we normally do, we see it for information purposes at the council table, receiving some of the information. I understand Mr. Hall wanted to make a deputation tonight, but we pretty rigidly stick to our rules in terms of scheduling deputations ahead of time. I would suspect that if Mr. Hall wants to make a deputation on this for our next meeting, we would be happy to accommodate that. And I suspect we may not be at a point to even make comment at our next meeting back to the planning board on this particular issue, depending on how council receives this information and what Mr. Hall has to, both Mr. Halls, I suppose, have to add to this, because this is all, it's pretty fluid and moving pretty quickly in the last 2 days on this issue on it. So I think council has a lot to digest here. Certainly does seem pretty straightforward. But anyway, in all fairness, I think the Halls should have the opportunity to have some time to prepare a response to this as well, which I think we'll see either in the form of a deputation or information sent to us before our next meeting. So it definitely won't be dealt with tonight, as it normally wouldn't be anyway. And then it'll come before our next council meeting. And at that point, council can decide whether they want to proceed at that point in time or defer it again to a later date. Any further comments or questions from council? No, Councilor Malat? You're muted, Councilor.
Is that better?
He was sending.
We working?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure where the access is. Is it by the pit, or where do they get into the road to the lots?
Mr. Jackson?
Yes, Dale, the access is actually along Burnside's Ridge Road, a little to the east. The original access was actually right through the heart of the pit, but they relocated this access to accommodate lots up on the mountain basin that were created historically. And so it's right along the eastern boundary, and actually the access shows up in the report.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I looked at that. So it'd be just past the pit then?
yeah, not just past considerable distance, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was out that way and I just was trying to figure it out in my mind. So thank you for the clarification.
No problem.
Okay, and my understanding is from our package that that would be one of our limited services roads, which we have some standards that we apply to that, just so that current and future owners understand that access by municipal vehicles is not going to be the same as on a municipal road.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Any other questions at this point in time from council? Okay, so we'll expect to see this one back at the next council meeting then. And I know Mr. Hall, you're listening in tonight, so you're quite welcome to schedule a deputation for the next council meeting or send in some information in the meantime, or do both, whichever it is that you want to do. Thank you. Item 6.2, moved by Councilor Ryman, seconded by Councilor Gregory, that the council for the corporation of the Municipality of McDougall has no objections to the approval of consent number B18 2020 as applied for by Brian Goodrich on part of lot 23 and 24, concession 1, geographic township of McDougall, now the Municipality of McDougall, subject to the following conditions. 1, confirmation that the lot will merge with the benefiting land, and 2, that all municipal fees and disbursements, legal, engineering, planning, if any, incurred by the municipality with respect to this application shall be paid for by the owner. Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? It's carried. Moved by Councilor Malat, seconded by Councilor Constable, that the council for the corporation of Municipality of McDougall has no objections to the approval of consent number B20 2020 as applied for by Rob and Susan Durant on part of lot 20, concession 10, geographic township of McDougall, now the Municipality of McDougall, subject to the following conditions. 1, obtaining 911 civic addressing. 2, that the severed and retained land zoned RU be rezoned to the WF1-LS zone. Payment of the required fee in lieu of parkland is set out in the municipality's fee bylaw. That the owner enter into a development agreement pursuant to section 5126 of the Planning Act to be registered on title of the subject land, to recognize the seasonal use only road, and to indemnify the municipality from any liability for the private road, and that all municipal fees and disbursements, legal, engineering, planning, if any, incurred by the municipality with respect to this application shall be paid for by the owner. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Resolution moved by Councillor Ryman, seconded by Councillor Gregory, that the Council for the Corporation of the Municipality of McDougall has no objections to the approval of consent number B23 2020, the Mon Estate, on part of Lot 16, Concession A, Geographic Township of McDougall, now the Municipality of McDougall. The lot additions are confirmed to merge with the benefiting lands, and that all municipal fees and disbursements, legal, engineering, planning, if any, incurred by the municipality with respect to this application shall be paid for by the owner. Discussion. Call the question. All those in favor? It's carried. Is there a blue hand up there? No. Matters arising in the planning, the buildings. Seven, by law enforcement, matters arising. Fire protection. 8.1, report of the fire chief, monthly summary, fire services. Should we do with us tonight or no? No, okay, so it's just there for our information. Also, have any questions on that report? Matters arising under fire protection. Emergency management, item 9.1, COVID-19 emergency response, declaration of emergency. McDougall is still under a declared state of emergency. I know some municipalities have been dropping it off, but I think at this point in time, as we're monitoring this second wave and the numbers seem to be growing quite rapidly throughout the province, we're probably prudent to leave it in place for now until we see what is that. Not that it changes a lot, but I think it does this two things that we wanted to have this do. The first one is to let our residents know how serious this issue still is for us. And secondly, it does give us some additional powers in terms of quick response if we have to, if things start to turn bad and McDougall on us. So I think we're wise to leave that in place at this point in time. Does anyone have any comments on that? Okay. Matters arising in emergency management. Recreation, matters arising. Public works, matters arising. Environment, waste management, matters arising. Finance, resolution, moved by Councillor Malat, seconded by Councillor Constable, that the attached list of accounts payable for September 15, 2020 in the amount of $505,908.76 and payroll for September 10, 2020 in the amount of $45,196.66 be approved for payment. Discussion. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. The addition to the agenda tonight is item 2, that section from Dave Thompson, Director of Emergency Protective Services, Town of Prairie Sound, Supplemental Emergency Medical Services Levy. Mrs. Robinson, you want to speak to this?
Thank you. This letter was received last week. They are asking for an additional share from McDougall of $24,506. This is in addition to our annual levy, which is approximately $225,000. This is to help cover some of their increased costing in PPE as well as COVID-related sick time. This was brought forward to a September council meeting at the town of Parry Sound and was passed by them. Thus, they are now passing on the weighted assessment methodology used to determine our share of that. We did receive the COVID funding recently from the province, which was $236,400. And this type of expense can be used towards that, as the province has not determined any real specifics in terms of what that funding can be used for. The letter does, however, it fails to address a few items in terms of any financial analysis in regards to the cost overruns, as well as there's no accompanying financial forecast as to how they plan to control these costs going forward. Just a few things that would have been nice to have been addressed in the letter, which I don't see in there at this time.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Gregory?
Your worship, I just wondered whether or not they had stated that they had received money specifically from the province for emergency services.
Mrs. Robinson?
The letter doesn't specifically address any funding from the province. However, there was an $80 million funding announced from the province to EMS. However, it's not in the letter to that states how much they did receive or how that funding was going to be used.
Councillor Gregory?
Can we ask how much they got, or if they've gotten anything yet?
Mrs. Robinson?
I definitely think we can, yes.
So we will ask that question then before we answer payment on it. Councillor Constable?
Is it possible also to ask the questions that you had said that would have been nice to have it accompanied with? Because it would be nice to see that information.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I think it's probably easily understood by all of us that there were definitely going to be additional costs for them operating, but I mean, it is, I think the province recognized that as well. That's why there was that funding put out there for it. So I think that's the gray area we're trying to figure out in between is we know the additional costs, but how much of it was covered off already by the province for these. So we'll leave those questions then with you, Mrs. Robinson.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Any other matters arising under finance? No. Item 14, administration, the draft 2021 committee council schedule. Mrs. West.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I brought this forward resulting from our last meeting of council where a proposal was brought forward and then a request to consider one meeting a month. So the first schedule that's provided in your package is option 1, which is a schedule as presented at the September 2nd meeting, being meeting the first and third Wednesday of the month, with the exception of January and July and August, just because of the conferences and that sort of thing. This worked well for us last year. Option 2, which I'm calling the hybrid model, I've moved to one meeting for the month of January, February, plus a special budget meeting in February, March, July, August, and December. And then option 3 is the proposed one meeting per month with the option with all of these to call a special meeting at the call of the chair.
Okay. Thank you. Comments from council?
Councillor Ryan has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Councillor Ryman?
Thank you, Your Worship. I looked at this carefully, of course, and I can appreciate where staff is going. I would support option 2. I think it's important that we still maintain months where there are 2 meetings, because as we well know, there are months where there is a lot to cover, and it could require 2 meetings, such in case the whole matter that we just finished, because that's probably an important item to get over. So I would support option 2, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Malott?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I was of the same opinion. I favored option 2.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Gregory?
I agree with both of them, Your Worship, in regards to option 2. I just don't think once a month is enough.
Okay. Councillor Constable?
Yeah, I just agree with the other 3 councillors, and I think there could be a negative perception as well, moving to once a month. So definitely think the second option is the best.
Okay, well, it sounds like that's 4. I'll make it 5 out of 5. I agree with that option. And knowing that in the February 17th budget meeting, it does consume a lot of time for that meeting, but I also know that as in the past, we can bring something, if there's something urgent that comes up between February the 3rd and March the 3rd has to be dealt with, we could deal with it because it is in a council meeting format anyway. So that could be dealt with in that February 17th meeting. So I guess the real change here from last year, without going to just once a month, is we're now eliminating one of the March meetings as well and one of the December meetings, correct? Okay. All right. I know traditionally we used to, even look at our schedule from last year and the proposed schedule, we used to think we'd see a lot of activity in the summer from our seasonal residents who are up, but traditionally over the last few years, I haven't noticed any additional. They just want to come up and enjoy their properties like most people in the summertime. So I haven't seen that having just one in July and one in August doesn't seem to have been a problem for staff, council, or for our residents for doing it. So looks like it's the consensus of council then. If you can take it as direction, or I guess it's come forward as a resolution at the next meeting then. So we'll go with that option number 2 schedule. Item 14.2, council statement of priorities and direction 2018 to 2022. I think that comes before us on a regular basis just for an update on it. Do you want to speak to it, Mrs. West? Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one item that I've got some good news on is the Nobel Church. The lawyers have submitted the application to the courts in Parry Sound. Bad news is that there's such a backup on that. These day-to-day items get put in what they call a basket item. And depending on where it falls and when the judge gets to review the paperwork, but they are reviewing these applications now. So hopefully we have some news in the near future. And just to update council again, or remind council that application is to put the ownership of the church into the local church group's name so that they can finalize the transfer to us.
Good. Okay. Any questions on that? Any other comments or changes to the statement of priorities and direction? No? Okay, thanks. Matters arising under administration? Request for support? None. Motion for this notice have been previously given. I'm made aware of any. Item 17, committee reports from the District Health Unit, Boil Water Advisory for water drawn from the Shpishbong River, Carling Township. Also from the Health Unit, notice of a confirmed case of COVID-19 at the Bay Street Cafe in Parry Sound. From the Health Unit, outbreaks at schools will be publicly announced by the health unit. Also from the health unit, updated recommendations regarding close contacts of symptomatic individuals. All that there for our information. Any matters arising under committee reports? Okay. Report of the CAO, Mr. Hunt.
Not much to report tonight. Taking advantage of some time off lately, so the one issue that has come up was briefed on today, a little bit last week as well. The landfill packer has given us some fairly serious issues last week. It looks like we may have blown a cylinder in it. So that packer is on its way to Sudbury today. And we'll have to pull the engine and investigate what that's going to be. So we are going to make do with our other equipment in the meantime. That is an unused budgeted expense. That'll be a big number. That's not going to be a $5,000 or $10,000 repair. That'll be a $30,000 or $50,000 repair. So it's not old enough to trade in. And the new one's about $850,000. So we're definitely going to fix this one as long as we can. So like I said, it was picked up today. It's in Sudbury now. They said they'll try and have it tore apart by the end of next week and let us know what the damages are. But it looks like right now we've dropped one cylinder, so if they can receive the cylinder, put it back together, we'll be lucky. That's our best hope right now, is to get it repaired. So that was a big one. The landfill shop building, it's coming together slowly, still fighting with engineers on how to prepare the site for the building. Hydro's passed their permit for hydro services to it. That's been laid out. So that's kind of in slow motion. Other than that, I had a quick chat with most of the staff today. Things are good. I see they made another water connection in Nobel this week. I think that went okay yesterday. I don't think there's any problems with it. I didn't see any water coming out of the ground this morning, so it's a good sign. Other than that, I think things are pretty good here right now.
Okay. Councilor Gregory.
Excuse my ignorance, your worship, what's a packer?
Football player.
It's a big machine that the landfill will use to squash all the garbage in the site. It runs over the garbage most of the days to pack it down.
Okay.
That's what it does, pack garbage.
Okay,
It's called
thank you.
packer.
You've been at the site when it's operating. It's the large machine with the big steel wheels with the big knobs on it that packs the garbage down, which we have to do on a daily basis. So we compress and we get a lot longer lifespan out of our landfill cell because of that. Maybe along the lines of that question, is there anything else when it's at the shop being done to fix that cylinder, if that's what it is, that can be done that would kind of prolong the life of this? Because I'm not sure how far along we were. I think that was a 2007 purchase. So we would have expected it to go out to
2027, about 20 years.
20 years. Yeah.
Minimum 20 years on those machines. One of the more expensive parts is moving that machine because you have to move it on a beam float. Can't move it on a normal float. So it's expensive to move it. We did have it scheduled to go in this year for sandblasting, painting, new center pin bearings and bushings. So they've got the machine completely stripped down to all the engine. So it's going to be all done. They'll come back looking like new. I'm not going to send it back up again. So when we get it back, we'll get another at least another 10 years out of it. So which would be beneficial to us.
Okay. Any other questions on CAO report? On the landfill building then, so are we still looking at the same spot on the landfill site for? I know there was some issues with the soil conditions, so it's just a matter of engineering a slab differently for those soil conditions?
Yeah. They're dealing with engineers and how they want the material packed in the hole now. And they're struggling a little bit with the beams that have to run parallel with the building where the packer's going to come in to hold the weight. that they're struggling with a little bit. Trying to figure out how to divide up the 90,000 pounds on those spoke wheels. It's not necessarily the weight, but every time the thing moves, it hits hard. So they're struggling with it a little bit. If money wasn't an object, in the mining industry, they just pour a 2 or 3 foot floor and not worry about it. We're not there, so we got to kind of watch it a little bit tighter. So it's a little more time in engineering, but it'll be cheaper in the end to just do it with some beams.
Given the current building construction industry state where everyone seems to be very busy and run off their feet anyway, it may not have been an ideal time to have gone out for tender on it anyhow, given our, which kind of, I guess, just reminds me, which I know you've been off on it. So, I mean, you're still going to be coming back to council with a report for the renovation to the front of the building in terms of whether we just leave it alone completely or whether we look at some other option for.
Yeah, I'm still looking on that as to how we deal with that.
But that'll come back to council then and we can make our decision at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Bylaws. Bylaw 2020-42, moved by Councilor Malat, second by Councilor Ryman, that bylaw 2020-42, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2017-75, a bylaw governing the calling, place, and proceedings of meetings of the municipal council and committees of council for the corporation of the Municipality of McDougall, and to repeal bylaw 2020-18, be introduced and read a first and second time. Discussion? Maybe just a quick explanation for the public's sake in terms of what this is doing, Mrs. West.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a reminder, this bylaw will repeal the bylaw that we amended in April that would allow us to hold electronic meetings under a declared state of emergency and replace it to allow council to continue to have electronic meetings. So council meetings have been held since April electronically, and the municipality remains in a declared emergency. However, should the head of council choose to terminate the declaration, all regular meetings of council moving forward would be required to be held in person. To continue to hold meetings electronically beyond a declared emergency by the province or the municipality, a further amendment would be required, and that's what this would do. We have an expiration date on this for 1 year. It can simply be repealed when we feel comfortable to open our doors again to the public and when social distancing is not a factor.
Okay. Thank you. Discussion? Question on the first and second reading. All those in favor? It's carried. Pleasure of council to give this third and final reading tonight.
Yes.
Okay. Moved by Councilor Gregory, second by Councilor Constable, that bylaw 2020-42 be read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Final discussion. All those in favor? It's carried. Just a question. Wes, do we have any, like a calendar or anything on our website that shows how many people actually view our recordings of our council meeting? We do? Yeah. Does anyone?
We were just reviewing it tonight. One had 25 views, but our average is about 16, 17.
Oh, yeah. Well, people are aware of it then. It's.
And the other item that I should bring to our attention is that Municipal Affairs does not recommend recording meetings and then posting them at a later date. So starting next meeting, well then I'd like to try a live stream to YouTube.
Okay. So at that point, will we still know how many people are tuning into live streaming then to see? Okay, it's just good feedback, I think, to.
We'll leave the recordings on the website as well so that people can still look at it for a period afterwards.
Okay, thanks.
I've missed Eric. Isn't it Eric?
One.
Mm.
Okay, so council will be advised that we will now consider shore road allowance application 2021 for Drake Mill Lake bylaw 2020-43. This is West. Have we received any written correspondence on this matter?
Notice that the proposed bylaw was given in accordance with the prescribed municipal legislation and no written correspondence received.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Gregory, second by Councillor Constable, that bylaw 2020-43 being a bylaw to declare to be surplus, stop up, close and sell part of the original shore road allowance laid out along the shore of Mill Lake in front of lot 19 and concession 4 in the geographic township of McDougall, now in the municipality of McDougall in the district of Parry Sound, designated as part 2 on 42R-21454 for Drake, be introduced and read a first and second time. Discussion? All those in favor? It's carried. Pleasure of council to give this third and final reading. Moved by Councillor Bryman, second by Councillor Malat, that bylaw 2020-43 be read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Final discussion? All those in favor? It's carried. Just a minor spelling issue, and that's why I hesitated there. I'm not sure if you want it corrected and signed off by the mover and seconder, or wants to be redone.
Just on the cover page or on the bylaw as well?
I've only seen it on the cover page.
The bylaw resolution, sure, if you'd like, do we have the mover and seconder here?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I just got to put a U back into McDougall. Up
Where?
above, right in the paragraph up above, you see my writing,
Where in Oakville?
just your initial beside that.
That's fine.
Thank you. You. No items for the tracking sheet in item 21, no items for closed session, therefore no ratification of matters from closed session. Bylaw 2020-44, moved by Councillor Ryman, second by Councillor Malat, that bylaw number 2020-44 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the committee council meeting held on September 16, 2020, be introduced and read first and second time. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Gregory, second by Councillor Constable, that bylaw 2020-44 be read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Final discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Ryman, seconded by Councillor Gregory, that we do now adjourn at 7:43 p.m. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Okay.
Good night.